Coming up on today's episode, we chat to Nonzwakazi, a mother, journalist, and an editor-in-chief who opens up about cultivating self-love while growing up full-figured, her experience with abuse, loss, and not giving up on love. Welcome to the Colorful Layers podcast, platform for unfiltered women conversations. My name is Nonzwakazi, but you can just call me Moto. I'm a former radio broadcaster with a love for storytelling. Join me each week as we plug up the courage to peel through life's sometimes beautiful or messy, but always colorful life stories and experiences with amazing women from various walks of life. Hello, and welcome to yet another beautiful Colorful Layers episode. I hope that you have been keeping well. I know it's been a while since we last released an episode, but it's one of those, like lately it just feels like time is just flying by so quickly. And 2022, I don't know if it's just me, has been super busy, but you know what? We are back and I am so excited to being able to share another conversation with an amazing lady on our episode, yet another powerful and inspirational everyday shiro. So I hope that you are excited and looking forward to today's episode. I was introduced to my guest through a friend, and one of the things that really stood out for me was just how, despite some of the continuous challenges and blows that life has thrown her way, she has continually chosen to rise up, and every time she rises stronger than she did before. I came up with so many themes: resilience, God delivers, the power of walking away, and so on and so forth. But I'm not even going to try and theme today's episode. I'm just going to allow you to experience it for yourself and decide for yourself what your takeaway and your theme is. Her name is Nonzwakazi. She is an incredible lady, a mother, a journalist, and an editor-in-chief. Let's meet her and hear her story. So first and foremost, Nonzorgazi, thank you so much for making the time to be a part of this episode. Are you well today?
I'm fine, and you? And it's only a pleasure to be on this platform.
That's really good. I'm really excited to hear more about your story. And I just think it's such a powerful story, especially in South Africa, where I think that a lot of women have gone through some of the experiences that you've gone through. So hopefully there'll be some valuable takeaways from it. So let's kick off by just finding out who Nonzwakazi is and just what makes you tick.
Okay, I'm a mom of 3. I've got 2 girls, 12 years old and a 2-year-old. And then I've got a boy who's 13. So I think the most important role that God has ever entrusted me with is motherhood. So that's who I am. But I'm also a woman who is God-fearing, who is passionate about life, loves having fun. And, even though the going gets tough, I move on and take it as a lesson. That's who I am in a nutshell. I'm also professionally, I'm a journalist and an editor-in-chief at one of the television stations here in South Africa. So yeah, that's basically who I am. And what makes me tick is the fact that every day is an adventure. I learn something new every day. It does not matter if it's work-related or life-related. So the fact that life is a constant learning journey for me is what makes me tick.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Colorful Layers podcast. The Colorful Layers podcast. Coming up on Colorful Layers, we kick off with Nonzwakazi sharing on what inspires her self-love and embracing her full figure. A few weeks ago when we, started chatting just to get a little bit of a sense of your story and who you are, you mentioned something quite interesting about yourself in that I'm going to use this word because, that is what commercially that is known in terms of body positivity. Can you just share a little bit on that?
So I was born a big child. So I've always been big. And my family has never made me feel ashamed for being big. I know that like when I was young, I really struggled to get like clothes and I had to wear adult clothes, but they'd still make sure that I look stylish. So I've always been a big girl and I've always embraced it. And even though there were people who'd make me feel ashamed about being big, I never, ever took it to heart because I came from a place of love where I was shown that it's beyond the body, it's what's in the heart that counts. You know, if you look at the South African landscape over the past few years, we've seen a growing trend of body shaming. And every time I see how people can be cruel towards other people for something beyond their control, it really touches a nerve. But one thing I know is that I've always remained confident, and I know that God loves me the way I am.
That's so beautiful and so true. At what age would you say that you started noticing that, you were slightly fuller figured?
I think as you grow and you approach your teens, that's when you start noticing that, people are different. And there are people who make you feel bad for the way you look, something that is beyond your control. So I think as I approach my teens, my peers would wear certain things that I couldn't wear. Yes, it felt bad at times, but I think the one thing that my mom always assured me and my dad is that I look beautiful in whatever I wear, and it doesn't matter what another person says about it. So I've adopted that strategy in life, and over the years, it's worked miracles for me.
And I mean, the topic around body image and self-image is something that I don't think only just individuals who are like, maybe let's say, are fully figured. Like I think a lot of, and I'll speak for women, a lot of women definitely do go through this, even if you're not seen as fuller body. Like I remember I grew up, slightly on the, I don't want to say slender, but smaller, but I've always struggled with like body image. So I find it quite interesting when you say that your parents are the ones that actually from a very small age, planted that seed that you are beautiful as you are and you shouldn't worry. So would you say that is the thing that really cultivated the self-confidence that you've been able to carry into your adulthood?
Yes, definitely. Because if they hadn't shown me the love that they showed me, I would have confidence issues. I would want validation from the world. And because of that love, that love they gave me and the fact that they taught me to love myself, I've been able to maneuver this life journey smoothly. There are challenges, but I've learned to live with them. And trust me, I've done diets, I've done all sorts of kinds of things, but it's genetic. At this, the way I look at it, it's genetic. I've always been big, and even if I try to slim, I'll always be a big girl. I'm just a big built girl, and I think a lot of people are motivated by my confidence, the fact that I'm able to even dress for my body and look stylish. The fact that I can openly talk about an issue like this, because a lot of people struggle to talk about such issues. They'd rather cry behind closed doors. But the fact that I'm able to talk about this, makes me feel like I am every woman.
Yes, I love that. If you had to give, let's say, 2 or 3 practical suggestions or even advice for somebody who's listening right now and they're really just either struggling with, the body self-image or even just their weight right now. They're just in a place where they're super uncomfortable and constantly, trying this and trying that and just not happy in their skin, the skin that they're in. What would that be?
I self-care, self-love are very important. We tend to prioritize loving other people without doing the introspection and the self-love, which are very important. I think it starts with you, within you. You must wake up in the mirror every morning and say, I'm grateful for this life. I'm grateful for what God has done for me. And I'm grateful that I look this beautiful. You need to affirm yourself and not get affirmation from the outside world. Yes, it's great to get affirmation from the outside world, and we are humans and we like that validation. But I believe it should start with you. Then secondly, my other advice would be that confidence is everything. There's a lot of people who struggle with self-esteem issues, and it's because most of the time it's because of how they look. I think they need to work on their confidence, and sometimes it requires working with a professional. There's nothing wrong with seeing a professional because you're struggling with confidence issues. I know as Black people tend to want to pray about everything. Yes, prayer works, but hand in hand with other things like looking for a professional service to help you with your confidence. And then also the emergence of social media. Oh gosh, I remember in the past, with magazines, it would be a matter of the size zeros. That's all we could see on glossy magazines, or size zeros. And the emergence of social media has made it worse, that people need to look a certain way. But there's no formula to this life thing. We all can't look the same. Imagine if we all look the same, how boring this world would be. So my third advice is that embrace yourself for who you are.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Colorful Layers podcast. The Colorful Layers podcast. Coming up on Colorful Layers, Nonzwakazi shares on the foundations of her resilience, followed by her experience with abuse. I just want to move into another topic, just spoken about how you've built this really positive view of yourself. And this is obviously through your upbringing as well. But I also think that you're somebody that showcases resilience. In our initial chat, you mentioned a few life-changing experiences that you went through, surviving situations such as abusive relationship, retrenchment, loss, and then finally also just finding true love. But for me, you strike me as somebody that even through, the ebbs and flows of life, you have that resilient spirit about you. Where would you say that comes from?
Hey, I think it comes from my family. I've always been told that I need to be strong. I need to fight it on, head on, whatever I confront, especially my mom, Nonzorgazi, I would say my mom, because she didn't want me to run away from issues or ignore them. She wanted me to face them head on, and no matter what happens, no matter the outcome, I would have confronted the issue instead of ignoring the issue. So I think that's where my resilience comes from. It's a family thing, and I see it with my sister as well. It's amazing, It doesn't matter what obstacle we face. We just confront it head on, find solutions. Don't focus on the problem, but focus on finding a solution. And that for me is very important in my life.
All right, so we're going to segue into a relationship that you were in from 2008 to 2014. Can you just take us through the beginning stages of this relationship?
We had a relationship for a year before I fell pregnant. He was a great guy. I felt like he was a great guy. It was a beautiful relationship, and I fell pregnant in 2009 with my son. And I remember the gynae saying to me, you need to play it safe, otherwise you'll be back here again in the maternity ward. And I was back again. within a year of giving birth to my son, I was in the maternity ward giving birth to my daughter. But I don't know, there's just this thing when you have a child, there's something in a relationship changes. It's either your relationship becomes stronger or things fall apart. But I felt like I should try for the sake of my child and then eventually my kids. And I kept trying for all the bad reasons. And here was this man who, I would say, because of his treatment, I would say pretended to love me. He would say the most harshest things. I would think that because of his upbringing, he's protruding. He had a bad upbringing. But the consequence was that it was an abusive relationship.
Prior to the relationship, just before the relationship started or in the early days, were there any red flags around him, or did he just come across as, the perfect gentleman?
There weren't any red flags until the kids were born. He would say the most nastiest of things about, say, for example, when you're pregnant, you struggle to wash your feet. He'd say like the nastiest thing when I was pregnant, that, hey, look at your feet, that sort of thing. If they are swollen, can't even wash your feet. But, I just ignore it and just, make excuses and say, this person, he's probably going through a bad day. I was always making excuses. And I think that was my biggest mistake. I was making excuses for him.
Sure. And then, so obviously it started off with the harsh words. When and how did the shift take place to now the relationship becoming abusive?
So I remember the one time, I think I was in the bathroom. I don't know what happened, but an argument ensued between me and him. And he slapped me in front of my son. And my son started screaming. He was very young then. Started screaming and crying, So it started as a slap, and eventually it got worse. It got really, really worse, to a point that on my 30th birthday, I remember I had gone and I had a party at a friend's house, and he was there as well. After the party, we went home. The kids were with his sister, and sleeping. I was tired after the party. And I remember, like, in the middle of the night, his friend had come over to visit as well. I remember in the middle of the night, like, seeing my braids flying in the air. This man was punching me. He was literally trying to kill me. And I ended up running into the bathroom and screaming for help. It was bad. And I remember seeing my neighbors switch off their lights as I was screaming. And I knew that if I was in the township, if someone heard me scream like that, they would have done something. But in the burbs, it's more like you mind your own business. But eventually I was able to run out in just my panties to another neighbor who called the cops, called my sister to alert her to what had happened, and eventually took me to hospital. It was bad. They actually didn't think I'd be where I am today. I'd make it because he had really done some damage to my body and to my soul. I opened a case against him, and the case went to court. But as I saw him and understands, and the case being postponed for further investigations, I just felt sorry for this man and decided that I would drop the charges. After dropping the charges, the relationship between me and him continued. I was like, I'm doing this for my kids. I want my kids to grow up the same way as me, with a father and a mom around. But it was the biggest mistake of my life.
Sure, that is so sad. I'm so sorry that you had to go through that. You know, there's one thing that you also said about how you were screaming and neighbors were switching off the lights instead of like assisting, which is almost like that's the world that we live in, the country that we live in, that people have become so what's the word? Their hearts have been closed to such situations.
Yeah, it's mind your own business type of attitude. Oh, it's sad, hey? I mean, if you look around, a lot of women would say they went to the cops to open a case against their partners for domestic violence. And the reaction of the cops would be, go sort the stuff out at home. So, if you go through all these things, that's why you find women dying in silence, because they know they're not going to get the kind of help that they deserve.
In terms of like the abusive nature of the relationship, was it something where it was constant, like on a regular basis, or would the abuse just flare up once in a while, just giving you that false feeling that things are going to get better?
Yeah, I kept on thinking things would get better, but instead they just became worse and worse and worse and worse. If it was not emotional, it was financial. I remember the one time I went to Cape Town and I left him with my car. When I came back, it was crashed. And I was left with the expense of fixing it, which was thousands of rands that I didn't even budget for. So it just, it went from physical to emotional to financial. And yeah, it would, the one day it would be emotional, the next financial, the next verbal. So yeah, it became a monster.
Yeah. And it's quite interesting. I think the way that you're just putting your story in, that you're saying that it started off as verbal or more emotional, and then it became physical. And then obviously there was like elements of financial abuse as well. Because what I find also interesting is that when you're dealing with somebody who is emotionally abusive, as an example, I think it's hard for some people to be able to determine like what is considered emotional abuse, especially when you live in a world where you've seen people speak harshly to one another. Maybe you're growing up or whatnot. Do you find that people find it difficult to be able to distinguish the difference?
Being emotional is when someone inflicts pain through their words, and it sharply pierces through your emotions. You're not good enough, you're fat, you're ugly, you're this, you're that, its aim is to destroy your confidence, it's to destroy your being so that you feel like you're nothing. But fortunately, I was able to fight that and say, whatever he believes of me or thinks of me, it has nothing to do with me but him. And if you look at his upbringing, it explained why he wanted me to feel bad, because all his life he had been made to feel bad. So he was just, he wanted, how they say misery loves company? He just wanted that. And I wasn't coming to the party.
Coming up on Colorful Layers, Nonzwakazi opens up about how being at her lowest, she was able to gain the clarity and strength to walk away. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Colorful Layers podcast. The Colorful Layers podcast.
After years of subjecting myself to this, I just decided it was time to call it quits. I think it came with the maturity. He had done nothing to me on the day that I decided to retire. This is over. It's not going anywhere. So I told him that by the time I come back home, I'd appreciate it if his stuff is out of my house and it's over. I'm not coming back. I thought about it, and I said, the very same kids that I'm doing this for, one day will not have a mom because of this person. So let me walk away before I become a statistic. Was not easy at all. But I was able to take a stand and say, enough is enough. I've had it. I'm out. Peace out. I'm good.
Another thing that you mentioned is, you mentioned like your sister helped you in one of the incidents. And I'm guessing, obviously, your children somehow also bear witness to some of the abuse that was taking place. How did this affect those relationships?
My sister was angry that why would I continue living with a guy who's doing this to me? She was livid. I remember even when he beat me up to a pulp, my sister confronted his family, was livid. And the fact that I had forgiven this guy and moving on as if nothing happened, she was livid because we had been taught that you must leave when love is not served. So she found it strange that I was not leaving this guy, even though he was treating me badly. She eventually said to me when I left that guy that we learn from our mistakes. She's glad that I learned my lesson and I can move on.
Coming up on Colorful Layers, Nonzwakazi details her journey after walking away, starts her difficult healing journey, determined not to go back, and how taking it one day at a time looked like, her prayers for healing and to one day meet a wonderful man, and how her prayers were eventually answered.
Can you walk us through, what walking away looked like? Because, for some women, for instance, walking away is difficult because not only do they have maybe children with the partner, but maybe they are reliant on the partner financially or for whatever reason. And so life now alone, and rebuilding and picking up the pieces, that's also on its own a bit of a challenge. So what did picking up the pieces look like for you? And what were some of your darkest days?
It was difficult in the sense that we're used to being, the four of us, and then suddenly there's the three of us. And we're creatures of habit. We become codependent. So it was really tough, but I was determined. I was like, I'm not going back to this guy unless I want to die. So picking up the pieces wasn't easy. I took each day as it came. I prayed for healing, not just the physical scars, the emotional scars. I prayed that should I meet somebody else, he must tick these different boxes. He must be different from this guy I was with. So I prayed a lot until God answered my prayers. Then I met a wonderful guy. Then we had a good thing going until he passed away in a bike accident. So that was just, dealing with that loss was very difficult for me.
Sure.
Yeah, I didn't have, there was no recipe for it. I just had to give myself time to heal. And time heals, I hear people say that. Take your time, go through the pain, cry, go through the roller coaster of emotions, but just know that time eventually heals.
Was there a support structure around you, people that you could talk to? Did you, receive counseling?
I had my friends who were supportive of me. My sister, she was very supportive of me. She took my kids when this happened. She lived with my kids until she could see that I'm okay to take on the role of motherhood again, and continue this life thing. She gave me the space to be and to mourn and to grieve. It was just the right recipe for me to heal. And I took each day as it came. I spoke openly about my feelings. I didn't bottle my feelings. I was honest about the pain I was feeling, how it was not just emotional. It felt like something had been taken away from me physically. So, the space to be, the space to go through the pain is for me what made me survive the darkest time of my life.
Sure. You're so fortunate that you have such a strong and a supportive sister like that.
I'm very lucky, I'm very, very lucky that I've got a sister I can turn to anytime and confide in her, and she will come through for me. I've got friends who are supportive, who've also gone through a level of pain. But we hold each other's hands and we keep moving, and we are strong. We're strong women. So I'm lucky to be surrounded by them.
That's amazing. And in terms of your parents, obviously just speaking about your relationship with your parents, were they aware that you were in such a situation? And also his family, were they also aware that this was happening? Did they at any point try to intervene and assist?
My dad had passed on when I met the guy, but my mom was alive, and my mom cautioned me against him. But I was like, what does she know? She's old, but clearly she had some level of wisdom.
Parents always know.
Yeah, to read his character. So, but I was like, it's fine. I'll do it. I'll see for myself. And my mom used to say, you will see for yourself. And I saw. I'm telling you, I saw. Hey, his family tried to intervene, but it was always a useless exercise because with them, it was always blood is thicker than water type thing.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Colorful Layers podcast. The Colorful Layers podcast. Coming up on Colorful Layers, our guest leaves us with some wise words for others currently in a similar situation and opens up about how life has taken a turn for the better.
So somebody who's listening right now, what words of advice or, encouragement that you would give to them that maybe they are currently in a similar situation as you were a couple of years ago, or maybe even, just advice on how to see some of these red flags, especially when somebody has the capability of becoming abusive?
You always see the red flags. But the thing is, we tend to make excuses for these people. My advice is be as honest as possible about your feelings. Be as honest as possible about what you're going through. Confront that uncomfortable truth. And once you confronted that uncomfortable truth, slowly start to think of an action plan. Like any other project, how would you execute it? How would you, depart this toxic part of your life? So, I make it sound like it's easy. It's not easy at all. You take each day as it comes and forgive yourself and slowly try to move on. Be independent of this person. Remember the strength that is within you, because often when an abuser abuses you, they take away your power, your strength. But remember that strength and reclaim it, so that once you reclaim that strength, you're able to walk away and never look back.
Did this encounter or experience affect your self-esteem, or even let's say, the hope or the belief that you would one day be able to find true and healthy love?
It did, because no experience like that it's not a normal experience. It will affect you negatively, your confidence. But I prayed, I remembered what my parents instilled in me, and slowly the process began, that internal process began, and it was an emotional spring cleaning. And slowly but surely, here I am, such experiences, you always, after those experiences, say you will never date again. But I am a firm believer in love, and that not all men are the same, which is why then it's quite evident in my life right now. 2 years after losing my partner to a bike accident, I met a wonderful man. And had I closed the door of love, I wouldn't have found such a person. I opened myself up and I said, I'm going to love again. And it's truly amazing. I'm still with this man 4 years later. We have a baby, a 2-year-old, and he's just amazing, So if you want a certain man or a certain kind of love, speak to God and watch how God delivers.
Love that. God delivers. And what does the future hold for you?
I'd like to take early retirement, but all in my dreams. I've got 3 kids to take care of. What lies ahead for me, I know, is a happier moment. I know that my partner and I want to get married and make it official. And his family loves loves me. I'm one of their daughters, which makes it even greater. So from that perspective, I know from a relationship perspective that I'm in a happier space and a balanced space. Yes, we do have our ups and downs as any other couple, but I'm in a happy space.
Nonzorgazi, this has been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for opening up your heart, sharing, those pieces of you that you've gone through. And yeah, thank you for the wisdom or the courage that your story is going to instill in others that have gone through or are going through what you've gone through.
It's all through God. It's supportive people around me. There is power also in telling your story, because your story has the capability of healing someone. I met so many women who have gone through the most horrible of pain. And once I tell them what I've gone through, they are motivated to do better in life. And I tell them that, see me with a smile, I could be going through the worst thing, but I know in the background, I'm fighting it head on. I'm giving it all my power to make sure I find a solution. So yeah, I hope my story heals, and I hope that it also allows other women to just confront the feelings that they've been scared of confronting. And even if it's uncomfortable, they realize that it's time to get out of their comfort zone. So yeah.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of yet another Colorful Layers episode. A huge thank you has to go out to my guest for her courage to open up and share her beautiful story with us and some of the learnings she has left us with. And another massive thank you to you for making the time to listen. Don't forget to give a video a like. Also be sure to give it a comment. And on YouTube, do please subscribe to our channel. Till the next one, from me, Motsataje. Cheers.